What if I told you, your emotions aren't the problem, your reactions are? Most people spend their lives being ruled by things they can't control. A sideways glance, an offhand comment, a missed opportunity. One trigger, and their peace is gone. Not because the world is cruel, but because they never learned to hold the line within. This video is about changing that, permanently. It's about learning how to act as if nothing bothers you, even when the world throws everything it has at you. No more emotional outbursts, no more spirals of overthinking, just quiet clarity and power under pressure. This isn't a motivational pep talk. It's a practical guide rooted in Stoic philosophy, emotional detachment techniques, and mental strength training. You'll learn how to master your reactions, silence your inner chaos, and build a mindset so steady that nothing external can shake it. Because you're not weak. You're just untrained. And the truth is, you don't need less stress. You need more discipline, more control. You're not alone in this. Every man who ever broke through did so by first mastering himself. This is your chance to begin. Stay with me. What comes next is not theory, it's transformation. And once you understand the quiet strength of Stoic detachment, you'll never look at your reactions the same way again. Let's get into it. 1. Respond, don't react. The power of emotional pause. Every time you explode, argue, defend, or lash out, you lose. Not to the world, to yourself. Because the moment you react without thought, you hand over control. And a man who hands over control has no power. The world is full of noise, people testing your patience, unfair comments, disrespect. You can't control how others behave, but you can control whether they get access to your emotions. That's where your real power lives. In your pause, in that tiny space between what happens to you and how you choose to respond. This space is where your transformation begins. Not by silencing the world, but by silencing your reflex. Because reacting is easy. It's automatic. It doesn't take discipline. But responding with intention, that's mastery. We've been conditioned to believe that being loud means being strong, that we have to prove a point, speak back, defend our pride. But pride built on impulse is hollow. It collapses under pressure. Real strength doesn't flinch. It listens, it waits. And when it speaks, it changes the tone of the room, not by volume, but by clarity. When you react instantly, you're not in control. Your emotions are. Your nervous system hijacks your mind, pushing you into the fight or flight state. Your heart races, your breath shortens, logic disappears. And when logic disappears, regret often follows. This is where most men stay stuck, chained to their emotions, imprisoned by their inability to pause. But the man who trains his pause, he's different. He becomes untouchable. He doesn't need to yell to feel powerful. He doesn't need to explain his calm. His silence is unsettling. His restraint is respected. Because when others are losing their heads, he's still breathing through his nose, still grounded, still calculating. Think about the last time you reacted too quickly. Did it solve the problem or make it worse? Did it make you feel powerful or empty? That's the trap. Reacting gives a false sense of control, but it always leaves you more vulnerable. The Stoics taught this long before neuroscience could explain it. They understood that external events don't hurt us. It's how we judge them that causes pain. Epictetus wrote, "It's not things that upset us, it's our view of things." Meaning, the insult isn't the problem. The disrespect isn't the problem. The traffic jam, the delay, the rude tone, none of it is the issue. The issue is our lack of discipline to pause. That pause is everything. It's where composure lives. It's where strength is cultivated. When something irritates you, don't speak. When you feel insulted, don't move. Just breathe. Count to 10. Let the moment settle without giving it your reaction. Because when you stay still, you expose the other person, not yourself. This pause isn't a weakness. It's strategy. And strategy wins long term. You're not suppressing your emotions. You're choosing not to be dominated by them. You're showing the world that your peace isn't up for grabs. That your power isn't reactive, it's proactive. This approach doesn't make you passive. It makes you precise. It allows you to see clearly before choosing your move. And sometimes the smartest move is no move at all. Let the other person drown in their own drama. You're here to rise above it. In real life, this looks like stepping away instead of yelling back. It's choosing silence over sarcasm. It's waiting a few hours before replying to a harsh message. It's deleting the email draft and rewriting it later. It's walking out of the room and coming back stronger. These aren't signs of weakness. They're proof that you've built something rare, emotional detachment without apathy. The more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. You begin to feel a different kind of confidence, not loud, not aggressive, but steady, quiet, solid, the kind of confidence that doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. So the next time something provokes you, ask yourself, do I need to react or do I need to remain in control? That question alone will shift your entire mindset. You're not here to win arguments, you're here to win peace. And peace is never found in emotional chaos. Remember this, the man who can pause commands the room, the man who can breathe leads the moment, and the man who responds, not reacts, becomes unshakable. 2. How to train the nothing bothers me mindset. Acting like nothing bothers you isn't about pretending. It's about becoming the kind of person who truly isn't bothered. That shift doesn't happen through willpower. It happens through training. Shaping your mind until calm becomes your default, not your performance. Most men don't lose because they're weak. They lose because they never built the inner ground strong enough to stand on when the world shakes. What happens to you is never as important as how you interpret it. And interpretation is a skill. It's the difference between being a puppet of circumstance and being the master of your responses. Stoic philosophy teaches that external events hold no power over us. Only our judgments do. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, fought wars, buried his children, and still wrote daily reminders to stay calm, stay just, and stay unmoved by praise or attack. His strength wasn't from the throne, it was from within. He didn't fake calm, he trained it. Epictetus was born a slave. He had nothing, no control over his environment, and no possessions to anchor his identity. But he understood that even in chains, a man could be free if he ruled his reactions. You may not control what happens, but you can always control how you respond, he wrote. That wasn't optimism, that was mastery. And it was earned through the discipline of thought. The modern world overwhelms you with noise, criticism, comparison, distraction. You're being pulled in every direction, emails, texts, opinions, expectations. And in that noise, most people become emotionally reactive. They let small things dictate their state. A rude tone, a missed message, a delay. One moment of external discomfort, and they unravel inside. But a man who trains his mind daily creates space. He rewires the reflex. He steps back before stepping in. That space is where resilience is built. Start here. Start by observing your first emotional impulse. Not reacting, just watching it. Let it rise. Let it pass. This is the foundation of Stoic detachment. Not denying what you feel, but refusing to be owned by it. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Meaning, your suffering often comes not from the event, but from the internal story you attach to it. Change the story. Don't say, "Why is this happening to me?" Say, "What am I being trained for?" That shift alone changes everything. You train this mindset in silence, not on the battlefield, but in the little moments no one sees. When someone cuts you off in traffic, you choose to stay silent. When your partner says something cold, you choose to breathe instead of fight. When you feel the pull to explain yourself, and you decide you don't owe anyone your peace. These are not small victories, they're reps, and each rep rewires your brain. You build mental strength the same way you build muscle, through resistance, through friction, through repetition. But make no mistake, this isn't about becoming passive. It's about becoming strategic. You're not ignoring reality. You're mastering your interface with it. You're becoming the kind of man who isn't easily shaken, who doesn't need to respond to every provocation, who owns his energy so fully that the world begins to adjust around him. When you live this way, people notice. Not because you're loud, but because you're still. Not because you dominate, but because you don't flinch. You're no longer chasing validation. You're no longer proving anything. You walk into a room and bring gravity with you, not noise. And it's not about being perfect. You will stumble. You will react. But the man who is training his mind will recover faster. He will return to stillness quickly. That's the difference. He doesn't live in chaos. He returns to calm. So if you want to act as if nothing bothers you, don't perform it. Build it. Build it in your mornings. Build it in your silence. Build it when no one is watching. Because the strength that makes a man unshakable isn't inherited, it's chosen. One thought at a time, one breath at a time, one pause at a time, and once it's yours, no one can take it from you. 3. Silence is power. Let them talk. You observe the strongest response is no response at all. When you choose silence instead of reacting, you take control of the entire situation. Not because you're avoiding the conflict, but because you're rising above it. In a world addicted to reaction, silence is the one move no one sees coming. It disrupts patterns, it disarms egos, it resets the energy in the room. People believe power is loud, visible, assertive. But the men who actually move things, who command presence, aren't chasing attention. They're observing, calculating, choosing when to speak and when to stay still. Silence isn't the absence of voice, it's the presence of control. And control is the foundation of the nothing bothers me mindset. When you speak too soon, you reveal what you're afraid of. You expose your insecurity. But when you wait, you become unreadable, unshakable. People can't manipulate what they can't predict. I know this because I've watched it unfold in real life. Dan was the kind of guy who used to jump into every argument. Someone cut him off in a meeting, he raised his voice. Someone joked at his expense, he fired back with sarcasm. It never ended well. Every exchange turned into a test of dominance, and he always left feeling like he lost something. But things changed the year he lost his job. Not because of his performance, but because he couldn't keep his temper under control. That's when he stopped and decided to rebuild, not just his career, but his entire approach to pressure. He started practicing silence. At first, it was hard. He told me it felt like weakness, like backing down. But slowly, he noticed a shift. People started leaning in when he did speak. His words carried more weight. He wasn't trying to win anymore. He was trying to understand. And that made him powerful. Dan's story isn't unique. Most men have been taught that reacting quickly is a sign of strength. It's not. It's usually fear dressed up as power. A man who knows himself doesn't need to prove it. He doesn't rush to correct someone who doubts him. He doesn't flinch at insults. He doesn't need to fill silence with defense. Because he isn't performing for approval, he's rooted in something deeper. That kind of internal discipline is rare, but it's trainable. Start small. When you're interrupted, pause. When you feel the urge to speak to defend yourself, don't. Let the silence work for you. You'll notice something strange happens. The other person begins to show their hand. The more they talk, the more they reveal their insecurities, their intentions, their lack of control. Meanwhile, you remain still, and that stillness becomes power. In negotiation, the person who speaks last usually wins. In conflict, the person who listens longer usually understands more. In chaos, the one who stays grounded becomes the center of gravity. This isn't about manipulation. It's about emotional detachment, about creating distance between you and the chaos of the moment, so you can choose your next move with clarity, not emotion. Silence also protects your energy. Words spoken in anger or defensiveness rarely land well. They don't solve the issue, they escalate it. But when you stay quiet, you give yourself time to think, to recalibrate, to decide if the situation even deserves your voice. Most don't. Most moments pass on their own, if you let them. The only reason they spiral is because we pour fuel into them with our reactions. There's another layer to this. Silence isn't just about others, it's about you. It teaches you to observe your own thoughts, your own triggers, to sit with discomfort without needing to escape it through words. That space is where real growth happens. It's where wisdom lives. You start hearing your own mind clearly, and once that happens, no one else's voice matters as much. So next time someone pushes your buttons, let them. Stay still. Let them wonder why you're not reacting. Let them feel the weight of your silence. Let them try to guess what you're thinking. That mystery makes you powerful. Not because you're hiding, but because you've chosen not to bleed in front of those who haven't earned your truth. In the end, silence isn't passive. It's intentional. It's what separates the impulsive from the disciplined, the predictable from the powerful. Speak less, mean more. Stay quiet long enough and the world will start listening, because they'll know when you finally do speak, you mean every word. 4. Stay composed under pressure. Train before the storm. You don't rise to pressure. You fall to your level of training. And most men never train their emotions until it's too late. Pressure reveals your preparation. It strips away every performance and shows the truth underneath. That's why composure isn't luck. It's not personality. It's discipline. It's mental conditioning. And it begins long before the chaos arrives. When the moment hits, there's no time to build new habits. You either have them or you don't. You either control the room or the room controls you. Most people react to pressure by hoping it passes. Stoics do the opposite. They expect it. They train for it. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself during the plague, political betrayal, and personal loss, not to survive it, but to sharpen his response to it. He didn't hope for peace. He prepared for war within. That's why he didn't shatter when everything else around him did. He rehearsed calm until it became his nature. Pressure doesn't only come in big moments. It builds in the small ones. The email came at the wrong time. The disrespect that lands in public, the unexpected shift in plans. These are tests, and the way you handle the small ones determines your capacity for the big ones. You don't stay composed by accident. You stay composed because you've trained your nervous system not to panic, not to collapse into emotion, but to stay anchored in clarity. Seneca once said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." What we waste most is our attention, our discipline, our focus. Instead of preparing ourselves to be calm, we hope we will be, but hope is fragile. It breaks under pressure. Preparation doesn't. To train composure, start when you're calm. Visualize stress. Imagine your worst conversation, the person who triggers you the most, the failure you fear most. Then slow your breath, relax your hands, drop your shoulders. Practice being the kind of man who stays rooted when the ground shakes. Because when it does, and it will, you'll already know how to stand. Composure under pressure also comes from understanding that most moments are not life or death. They only feel that way when your ego is involved. Your ego tells you every delay is disrespectful. Every critique is an attack. Every inconvenience is personal. But remove your ego and most problems shrink. You begin to see what matters and what doesn't. Epictetus taught that external events are not in our control. Only our response is. That mindset isn't passive, it's powerful. Because when you stop trying to control what you can't, you free up all your energy to control what you can. Your posture, your breath, your tone, your timing. That's where composure is born. In the real world, this means when tension rises, you lower your volume. When emotions spike, you slow your pace. When chaos pulls at you, you stay centered. It feels counterintuitive at first. Everything in your body will want to match the energy of the room. But if you do, you become reactive, predictable, weak. The man who can hold a steady state when others are cracking is the one who leads, not with noise, but with presence. You want to be the person they look at in crisis and say, "He's calm. We'll be okay." That doesn't happen by accident. It's built in morning rituals, in quiet reflection, in choosing restraint, in choosing stillness when stillness is the harder option. So the next time pressure builds, don't escape it. Enter it with readiness, with intention, with the posture of someone who trained for this moment before it arrived. Because once you've built that inner ground, you no longer fear the storm. You become the storm, silent, controlled, and impossible to shake. 5. Detachment is control. Be calm in chaos. Most people crumble not because of what happens to them, but because they've made the mistake of becoming emotionally fused with every moment. They attach their peace to how others treat them, to outcomes they can't control, to things that were never promised. And then they wonder why they feel powerless. Detachment isn't indifference, it's clarity. It's knowing what's yours to carry and what never belonged to you in the first place. Chaos will always be part of life. Delays, disrespect, disappointment. You don't get to live without those. What you get to decide is whether those things get to live inside your mind. The Stoics drew a clear line between what's in your control and what isn't. They trained themselves daily to stay on their side of the line. Not because it's easy, but because it's the only path to peace that actually works. Attachment is a trap. The more you cling to how things should be, the more fragile you become. You end up reacting to every shift, every slight, every storm. But when you detach, you create space. Space to think, space to see clearly, space to choose how you respond. That's what control really is. Not dominance over others, but discipline over yourself. When you stop trying to force reality to match your expectations, you stop suffering. This doesn't mean giving up. It means showing up without being dragged emotionally by every wave. It means knowing you can care deeply and still stay calm. You can be invested without being consumed. That's a strength most people never develop, because they confuse emotional intensity with emotional power. But the real power is quiet. It doesn't flinch. It doesn't need to react to prove it's alive. Let's bring it down to real life. When someone disrespects you, your instinct might be to fire back, to correct them, to match their energy. But that means they've already pulled you into their frame. You've lost the higher ground. Detachment gives you an edge. You feel the sting, but you don't respond from the wound. You respond from awareness. You decide, is this worth my energy? And more often than not, it isn't. In traffic, you're not frustrated because of the cars. You're frustrated because you believe this shouldn't be happening. That belief, unchecked, is what robs you. In a meeting, when someone cuts you off or ignores your point, it's your story about being disrespected that creates tension, not the moment itself. Once you realize that, detachment becomes your armor. Not to numb yourself, but to protect your clarity. Stoic philosophy isn't about suppressing emotion. It's about understanding which emotions serve you and which ones enslave you. You're allowed to feel frustration, you're allowed to feel anger, but you're not obligated to act from it. That gap, that pause, that detachment, it's where your control begins. The mind that's constantly pulled into reactions cannot lead anything. Not a business, not a family, not even itself. So how do you build detachment? You begin by asking one question in every emotional moment. Is this within my control? If the answer is no, breathe and release. If yes, act with calm purpose. Simple to say, difficult to live. That's why most don't. But you're not here to be like most. You're here to master yourself. Some people will misunderstand your detachment. They'll call it cold, aloof, distant. Let them. Their discomfort has nothing to do with your discipline. You're not here to manage their reactions. You're here to protect your peace. Because when you can walk through the storm and not carry the storm with you, you win. Detachment isn't walking away from life. It's walking into it with strength. It's the man who hears noise but doesn't become it, who sees fire but doesn't add fuel, who feels the chaos but still walks with clarity. That's not apathy. That's a command. And once you have it, you'll never let it go. Because in a world where everyone's losing their mind, you'll be the one who stays grounded. Not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. 6. Handle criticism like a master. Criticism is a mirror. It shows you where you're strong and where you still flinch. Most people fear it. They run from it, argue with it, take it personally, or let it sink into their identity. But criticism doesn't destroy you, your interpretation of it does. That's why the way you handle it reveals more about your mind than words ever could. When you master your response to criticism, you stop being controlled by approval. You stop reacting from insecurity. You begin acting from clarity. Criticism is part of life. If you're doing anything worth attention, you're going to attract opinions. Some true, most not. The Stoics never saw criticism as a threat. They saw it as a filter, a way to test themselves. Epictetus taught that when someone insults you, ask yourself, is what they said true? If yes, fix it. If not, ignore it. Simple, brutal, effective. Because your energy is too valuable to waste on defending yourself from people who were never trying to understand you in the first place. But to live like this, you need a different frame. You need to separate who you are from how people speak about you. And that takes practice. You need to get comfortable being misunderstood. Comfortable knowing that the truth isn't always loud. That being right doesn't always look like winning. That peace sometimes means saying nothing, even when you're tempted to correct everyone's opinion. This reminds me of a man named Tim. Quiet, reserved, unshakable. He built his own company from the ground up and refused to play politics. While others chased claps and compliments, Tim focused on results, and it worked. But success never protects you from criticism. In fact, it attracts more. One day, a younger partner publicly questioned his leadership in front of the whole team. A direct shot. Everyone expected a reaction, a rebuttal, some kind of power move. But Tim didn't flinch. He looked at the guy, nodded once and said, "Let's talk after this." Then he kept the meeting going like nothing happened. No defense, no tension, just composure. Later I asked him how he stayed so calm. He said, "If I react emotionally to a challenge like that, I validate it. I let him control the room. But if I stay grounded, he exposes himself, and I stay in control." That's detachment in real time. And that's the power of self-trust. When you know who you are, you don't need to fight every attack. You don't need to react to every low blow. You stay still. Let the noise echo, then fade. Most criticism isn't about you. It's a projection of the critic's own frustration, insecurity, or ignorance. If someone hasn't built what you're building, why would their opinion define how you move? You wouldn't take swimming lessons from someone afraid of water. Don't take personal feedback from someone who's never stood where you're standing. Still, not all criticism is useless. There's a difference between constructive feedback and emotional attacks. The key is discernment. Stoicism doesn't teach you to ignore all voices. It teaches you to listen without absorption. Filter feedback. Keep what helps. Discard what doesn't. And stay emotionally untouchable in the process. Here's how you do that. When criticized, pause. Breathe. Don't respond from defense. Respond from strength. Ask yourself, is this true? If it stings, explore it. If it's false, let it go. Don't carry the judgment of others longer than it takes to weigh its value. You're not required to internalize every opinion just because it is loud or clever. You gain power the moment you stop needing everyone to agree with you. The moment you stop shrinking to avoid criticism and start rising above it with discipline. True confidence isn't the absence of critique, it's the ability to remain calm in its presence. And once you master that, you free yourself, not just from their words, but from the fear that made their words matter in the first place. 7. Let go of validation. You don't need approval. You were not born to be liked. You were born to be free. And freedom begins the moment you stop seeking validation. Most people are trapped in cages built by compliments. They rise and fall based on how others see them. They live for applause, avoid disapproval like poison, and shrink every time someone disapproves of who they are. But when your peace depends on people, your power never belongs to you. Validation addiction is subtle. It sounds like, was that good enough? Did they notice me? What if they don't agree? But behind every one of those questions is fear. The fear of being misunderstood. The fear of not being accepted. The fear of standing alone. Yet the irony is, real respect only comes when you no longer chase it. When you stop adjusting your truth to fit someone else's expectations, that's when people start to notice something different in you. You carry your own gravity. In Stoic thought, approval from others holds no weight unless you choose to make it so. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that public opinion is fleeting and mostly irrelevant. He wrote, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." He was emperor of Rome, yet he still battled the same human weakness, to be seen, liked, and understood, which means this struggle is universal. But it also means mastering it is possible. The deeper danger of needing validation is this: it makes you easy to manipulate. Say the right words, offer the right flattery, and your defenses drop. Criticize at the wrong moment and you spiral. That's not power, that's emotional dependence dressed in ambition. Stoicism teaches the opposite. It builds a man who can stand quietly in the storm of opinions and remain unmoved, not because he's arrogant, but because he knows who he is. Letting go of validation doesn't mean rejecting all feedback. It means learning to value your own voice more than the noise around you. It means taking advice with discernment, not desperation. When someone praises you, appreciate it, but don't inhale it like oxygen. When someone criticizes you, weigh it, but don't tattoo it to your self-worth. You can hear everything and still let your inner compass lead. This shift happens the moment you stop performing, the moment you realize you're not here to impress, you're here to express. Not to win approval, but to live with integrity. Because a man who is owned by public opinion will never do anything great. He'll live in hesitation, in self-censorship, in fear of disapproval from people who don't even know what they believe. and he'll never feel peace, only temporary acceptance. So how do you let go of validation? You start by noticing where it shows up. In your words, your posture, your choices. Do you say yes when you want to say no? Do you hide parts of yourself to fit in? Do you replay conversations in your head, wondering if you sounded smart enough? That's where the work begins. Not by changing what others think, but by breaking the need for them to think anything at all. The next time you feel the pull to explain yourself, to be liked, to gain approval, pause. Ask yourself, what would I choose if no one needed to know? That question brings you back to your center. That's where your voice gets stronger. That's where you act from the truth, not from fear. And when your actions are rooted in truth, you don't need a crowd to validate them. You carry the conviction within. People may not understand this kind of strength. They might mistake your silence for arrogance, your nonchalance for coldness. Let them, because once you stop seeking to be understood, you make space to become unshakable. You stop explaining, you start embodying. You don't argue your worth, you live it. And in that shift, something powerful happens. The world no longer controls you. It reacts to you. You move from chasing attention to commanding respect, not by force, not by noise, but by becoming the kind of man who no longer needs to be seen to know that he matters. 8. Flow like water. Master detachment. Adapt to life. Real strength doesn't resist. It adapts, it bends, it moves forward even when nothing goes according to plan. Water doesn't break against obstacles, it flows around them. That's the mindset of emotional resilience. That's the Stoic way. Not to fight reality, but to master it by moving with it. Most people believe power means pushing harder, but the deeper kind of power, unshakable, sustainable power, comes from knowing when to release, when to shift, and when to let go. Control is an illusion most people suffer from. They try to bend life to their will. When things fall apart, they panic, blame, and shut down. But nothing steals your peace faster than clinging to outcomes you can't control. Life won't always match your plans. People will leave. Projects will fail. Expectations will collapse. The Stoics didn't deny this. They prepared for it. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that disappointment comes from expecting life to follow your script. Freedom begins when you stop needing it to. Detachment is not detachment from effort. It's detachment from outcome. You show up, do the work, love fully, give everything, but you release your grip on how it ends. That's what separates chaos from calm. That's what allows you to act as if nothing bothers you. Not because nothing hurts, but because nothing owns your peace. My friend Emma, she understood this. She wasn't always that way. When I met her, she was climbing fast, smart, driven, intense. Everything had to be perfect. Every goal is meticulously planned. Every result chased as her worth depended on it. And it worked for a while. Until one day, the contract she had spent 6 months building vanished in one phone call. The client pulled out. The entire strategy unraveled. I watched her fall quiet, not angry, not defeated, just still. When I asked her how she was holding it together, she said, "I gave my best. That's all I had control over. What they decide was never mine to carry." That stuck with me. Emma didn't quit. She adapted. She shifted her focus, rebuilt, and actually came back stronger. But it wasn't because she forced anything. It was because she let go of what no longer served her. She didn't waste time resisting the reality in front of her. She became like water, quiet, unstoppable, blowing through the cracks instead of smashing against walls. That's what Stoicism teaches you. Let go of the fantasy of how things should be and meet life exactly where it is. When something breaks, don't resist it, adapt to it. When someone leaves, don't chase, recenter. When your plans shift, don't freeze, recalculate. This doesn't mean life won't hit you hard. It will. But being hit doesn't mean you have to break. You move, you adjust, you stay in motion. The Stoics called this the art of living. To flow through adversity without becoming bitter. To adjust without losing your identity. To hold peace in chaos without pretending everything is fine. You don't have to be okay with what's happening, but you can stay grounded enough to respond with clarity, not emotion. Every setback is either an excuse to collapse or an invitation to evolve. When you stop resisting the detour, you start discovering strength you never knew you had. And slowly, you stop needing everything to go right. You just need to keep going, like water. Soft, but powerful, patient, but relentless. So the next time life throws a punch, don't tense up. Breathe. Ground yourself. Ask one question: where can I move instead of resist? That's where your power lives. Not in changing what happened, but in choosing how you move through it. Because the man who flows can never be trapped. He becomes uncatchable. And that kind of freedom, earned through detachment, is what makes you unstoppable. 9. Build daily mental strength. Resistance makes you strong. Mental strength isn't built in moments of comfort. It's built in silence, in resistance. In those everyday choices, no one applauds. Everyone wants to be unbothered. Everyone wants to be calm under pressure and stoic under fire. But few are willing to train for it. That's why most people collapse under stress. They're emotionally soft because they've never practiced being steady when it's hard. The mind, like a muscle, only grows through stress applied with purpose. You don't develop resilience by waiting for life to test you. You develop it by testing yourself first. Every time you choose discomfort over ease, structure over impulse, discipline over distraction, you're training your mind to obey your principles instead of your feelings. That's the difference between men who rise under pressure and those who fold. You don't build this in one dramatic act. You build it in small, repeated acts of control. You get up when you don't want to. You finish the task when motivation dies. You keep your mouth shut when provoked. These aren't tiny wins. They're reps, repetitions of identity. Each one reinforces who you say you are, instead of being ruled by what you feel in the moment. The man who keeps showing up, especially when it's inconvenient, is the man the world can't shake. Stoicism doesn't tell you to feel nothing. It tells you to feel everything and still move forward with clarity. That kind of mental toughness is not reactive. It's proactive. It's built before the fight starts. You don't wait until a crisis hits to learn calm. You prepare for the chaos by strengthening your threshold daily. You do this through friction, on purpose. Friction is what builds fire in a mind that's gone soft from comfort. The modern world is engineered to make you mentally lazy. Constant entertainment, easy dopamine, instant distraction, and every time you reach for ease, you lower your resistance. That's why so many feel fragile today, not because life got harder, but because discipline became optional. But for the Stoic, discipline is non-negotiable. Seneca wrote, "Endure and persist. This pain will turn to good by and by," meaning that the pain you choose becomes the power you keep. Mental strength also means taking full ownership. No excuses, no blaming the system, no waiting for permission. You don't need the weather to be perfect, the people around you to be supportive, or the timing to be right. You just need to act daily. That builds identity. An identity built from effort becomes self-respect. You stop needing external motivation when your internal standard rises, and that standard gets sharpened every time you resist the temptation to quit. What does this look like in real life? It looks like finishing the workout when no one's watching. It looks like choosing honesty in moments where a lie would be easier. It looks like silence when provoked, routine when bored, and stillness when anxious. These acts are invisible to others, but they are loud to your nervous system. You're teaching your mind, we do hard things, we don't back down. And eventually, that training becomes instinct. Stoic resilience doesn't come from talking about it. It comes from living it, from repeating behaviors until your emotional threshold stretches, from showing up to the same boring, uncomfortable habits every day because you're not chasing excitement. You're chasing excellence. When you think you're too tired, too late, too overwhelmed, those are the precise moments that shape your mind. The resistance isn't the obstacle, it is the path. Every day you're either feeding weakness or building strength. There is no neutral. Every choice either reinforces your control or erodes it. You don't become unbothered by accident. You earn that peace by practicing discomfort. That's the quiet secret of the mentally tough. They don't avoid struggle, they select it on purpose. And that choice gives them a kind of calm that no crisis can steal. So if you want to act like nothing bothers you, stop waiting for the world to go easy on you. Go to war with your own softness. Show up before it's urgent. Push when no one's watching. Discipline isn't about being perfect, it's about being consistent. That consistency over time becomes character. And character built through resistance That's the kind of strength the world respects, because it's the kind that never needs to prove itself. You've just walked through the mindset of the unbothered, the men who don't flinch, who don't overreact, who move through chaos with clarity and calm. But knowing is not enough. This isn't something you master in theory. It's something you earn through daily discipline, through deliberate practice, through choosing control over impulse, peace over noise, clarity over chaos. Stoic philosophy doesn't promise ease. It promises strength. It gives you a way to face life as it is, not as you wish it were. You now understand how to respond instead of react, how to build emotional resilience, how to let go of external validation, and how to train your mind to remain calm under pressure. These aren't just ideas, they're habits, and habits must be lived. Every moment gives you a chance to apply this. When someone interrupts you, pause. When things don't go your way, adapt. When your emotions rise, observe, don't obey. Mental strength grows one choice at a time, and those choices shape the man you become. Don't wait for the perfect moment to start. Practice today. Speak less, breathe deeper, react slower, reflect more. It won't always be easy, but it will always be worth it. Because the man who controls his emotions controls his life, and the man who trains that control daily becomes unshakable. If this message resonates with you, I encourage you to share your journey in the comments. What have you been learning? What's tested your composure recently? Your story might help someone else build theirs. Let's grow this discipline together, one calm moment at a time. Act not from noise, act from wisdom. That's how nothing will ever bother you again.